Ama öncelikle hoş geldiniz.
Teşekkürler, hoş bulduk.
So I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Emre Erdogan, political scientist and head of the International Relations Department at Istanbul Bilgi University. First of all, Professor Emre, I would like to ask you, so first of all, regarding the Turkish elections, we have the two main candidates. We have President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and we have candidate Kemal Kilicdaroglu. So many people are familiar with Erdogan's political views. I was wondering perhaps if you can briefly lay out candidate Kilicdaroglu's political views in comparison with President Erdogan's views.
Okay, it's a very good question. Yeah, he's the head of Republican People's Party, the party who founded the Republic. There were some legal problems in it, but yeah, they are declaring themselves as the continuing of this political party. They are Republican and secular. And the most important characteristic of the party is being secular, and they are social democrat. They are a member of Socialist International, and they are contacting regularly with Socialist Party and Social Democrat parties. It's a long history. There were too many discussions within the party about this topic, but they are defining themselves as Social Democrats. But the issue is that Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu is the candidate of an alliance, the Nations Alliance. Nation Alliance is composed of 6 and 1 political party. They are all supporting Kılıçdaroğlu. The RPP, Republican People's Party, is the greatest political party of this alliance. We are calling it as the Table of 6. And the second party is the Good Party, is a nationalist political party. And in the table, we have one ultra-religious party and two parties are founded by the ministers or members of the AK Party, the governing party. And we have one center-right invisible political party because they don't have any voter. That's the table. And they set up an agenda. They spent about 1.5 years, and they made some declarations about their future plans. These future plans, of course, they are different than Kılıçdaroğlu's own agenda as a social democrat, Republican leader. When we talk about the political profile of Kılıçdaroğlu, he's Alevi, is something important. He's from minority. He was the director of the Social Security Institution of Turkey during 1990s. He was an ex-bureaucrat, and then he worked in the RPP and became a politician. The RPP is not a typical social democratic party. It's a kind of alliance of different fractions. The first, secularists, they are there, radical secularists, and Alevis, they are supporting this party, and there's a very strong Alevi clique in the party. And there are some social democrats, a small number of social democrats, and they are competing and cohabiting with each other. And the director of this orchestra is Kılıçdaroğlu. Kılıçdaroğlu is well known with his capacity to organize that kind of very different factions in this party. He's a kind of negotiator. That's why he's very successful. About his political views, we believe that he's a social democrat. But yeah, he's not a typical social democrat as we observed in the European case. In some European countries, in Spain or Greece or Italy and other countries, there are some social democrat leaders. He's not one of them. What about the agenda? Yeah, when we are talking about the agenda of this table of six, it's a kind of progressive agenda. What does it mean? Their first priority is to make a regime change. Perhaps you know, we have a presidential system since 2017, and we elected our president in 2018, and the president is enormously powerful, incomparably. Yeah, they advocated this asymmetry as to give some extra power to executive branch, but the executive was already powerful, and the legislative branch is almost powerless vis-a-vis the president. Then the agenda of this table of six is to reform the system to a empowered parliamentary system, to give some extra powers to the parliament, to change the government to a parliamentary government, meaning that the prime minister will be elected by members of parliament, etc., etc. This is the first agenda. And they also prepared a constitutional proposal. This proposal is available in their website, and yeah, it's a kind of libertarian constitution. It gives an extra importance to freedom of speech, freedom of organization, and that kind of freedoms. Yeah, there are some marks about security, social security reform, etc. But generally, it's a kind of it's a constitution of political freedoms. About the political line, yeah, there are some proofs. They declared a memorandum of understanding. It's long. It has too many different items. But I made a numerical analysis of this manifesto, and I observed that okay, there were some agreements about some common issues such as importance of education, gender, etc., etc. But some very critical topics are left behind, such as the Kurdish question, and that's why it's a clear compromise memorandum. It's a memorandum of compromise. And they didn't address important problems.
So in this case, so since Kilicdaroglu, so he has been designated or selected by the, I believe they're also called the Altın Masa.
And yes, he's the
table of six.
Yeah, he's the candidate of this Altın Masa. Yeah.
And so can we say that since these two main components, main opponents, so we have Kilicdaroglu, who we can say is perhaps leaning towards the Ataturkian approach, versus President Erdogan, who is leaning more towards the religious-oriented approach. So we have this kind of opposing, how do we say, opposing margin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we can reframe it in that way. Erdogan has a clear pro-Erdogan position, and the rest is against him. Yeah, it's more than being against Ataturk or not, because yeah, Erdogan is ruling the country since 2002. It has been about 20 years, and he transformed the country a lot, especially. Yeah, I'm not talking about roads, etc. I'm talking about the political culture. Turkish political culture was always patrimonial. Yeah, Turkish political culture always tolerates the domination of a single person, single man. In it, there is a gender bias there. But Erdogan, day by day, increased his powers, monopolized all the branches of the government. He's the head of executive. He's directly controlling the parliament because he's the head of the majoritarian party, and he appoints members of the parliament of this party, and he's directly interviewing to judiciary. Judiciary is not independent, and even though he has a strong control on the media, conventional and non-unconventional media in the fourth power. And it's a very strong, personalized regime. Erdogan is the head of everything. Yeah, after the transition to the presidential system, the ministers, they lost their powers. Now they are members of the cabinet and they are secretaries indeed. Yeah. Erdogan decides and they have to make it practical. They don't have, generally, they don't have political characteristics. They are appointed there because of their expertise. There is an inner cabinet formed of Erdogan, close advisors such as the head of the communication, spokesperson of the president, etc., in addition to Minister of Interior, Minister of Foreign Affairs, head of the military, etc. There is such a close circle, and they are deciding for everything. It's a very personal region. That's important. From that perspective, being anti-Erdogan is being anti-regime, being against this very personalistic regime, because of course, it may increase the speed of the executive, but it doesn't bring prosperity. First of all, that kind of fusion of power leads to corruption. Turkish state is very big, and we are spending huge money to the infrastructure such as roads, ports, airports, etc. And we had an earthquake, and estimated damage is about $100 billion, and estimated expenses about $30 billion US, and money which Turkey doesn't have indeed, but yeah, there is huge money to distribute. And AK Party became successful in supporting their sympathizers by distributing state funds. Yeah, that's why, first of all, there is corruption. Second, we are calling it as clientelism. Yeah, they are distributing money to their clientele networks, etc. Yeah, it's very personalized and corrupted region. That's why being anti-Erdogan means being anti-corruption also. Moreover, yeah, there are too many authoritarian tendencies in the government. Yeah, they don't tolerate opposition or radical opposition, especially in the Kurdish issue or issues related with political freedoms. There is a small room for toleration. That's why, yeah, another characteristics of this coalition is being a supporter of increasing freedoms in society, every kind of freedom.
So
that's why, yeah, please.
So considering what you're saying, so being anti-Erdogan is being anti-corruption, and as we know, Erdogan uses the populist approach to appeal to his supporters, to appeal to also the rural regions, as we know. Currently, looking at statistics in Turkey, could we say that the Adalet ve Kalkınma Partisi the AKP is gaining more traction than Kilicdaroglu's CHP, the Cumhuriyet Halk Partisi, who is perhaps representing the minorities? What are the polls looking like currently in Turkey?
Yeah, it's complicated. Still, the AK Party is the biggest political party. Yeah, it's something important despite all economic crisis, political crisis, pandemic, and the earthquake. They are leading the polls as the party, 40, something like that. Yeah, it's huge because there were too many failures and there were some successes indeed. The smaller party of the coalition, this alliance, People's Alliance, is very weak. Nationalist Action Party, MHP, a ultra-nationalist party, they lost power after the birth of the Good Party. Both of them, they are nationalists, they are anti-Kurdish, and this party is small. That's why the support for the People's Alliance remains limited, around 41 at maximum. But it may be higher because they have been successful to attract some other people. On the other hand, CHP gained some power during this period, during the last 2 years, but yeah, they are not more than 30%. There is a more than 10-point difference between CHP and AK Party. The CHP, or Nations Alliance, became successful in attracting the support of the Good Party. Good Party is another nationalist party, but they also lost some power during the last 2 months.
Headed by, I believe, Meral Akşener.
Meral Akşener, and she was a member of MHP. She was nationalist. Both of them, they are anti-Kurdish. Indeed, we don't. MHP is somewhat more religious. It's so sad. We cannot, and other parties, they are not visible. Other smaller parties, they are not more than. HDP had to change its name. Indeed, they are using another party to prevent some legal problems. They have the same power. Always they have a base of Kurdish voters, about 10%. They made a great coalition of ultra left. It became with some successful, but we have a new leftist player, which is called Workers' Party, Turkish Workers' Parties, or Turkey's Workers' Party. It was old party. It was very successful in 1960s, something like that. But then they disappeared. They are small. They cooperated with the Kurdish political movement in many provinces, but they are competing against them in some provinces. And we have Muharrem İnce. Indeed.
So,
he was.
Please go ahead.
He was the candidate of the CHP in the last elections. He competed against Kilicdaroglu in a congress for the presidency of the CHP. He lost. Then he became the candidate of the CHP and he lost. But it seems that he's becoming more and more popular every day. And that's why he changed the picture, because about 3 weeks ago, HDP, Kurdish political movement, said that they won't nominate anyone. Of course, if they don't nominate anyone, it's a kind of indirect support to Kilicdaroglu. But after this declaration, İnce started to gain some support in social support, and of course, it changed the picture because, with the support of HDP, the Nations Alliance could easily win these elections in the first round. But now there is a big possibility of having another round. Because no one will be able to pass 50% plus one threshold. That's why they are game changers.
And so looking at now we've seen, now you've summarized the regional parameters of both candidates. If we look at the international aspect of both, we have Erdogan, who is leaning more towards, now we've seen his collaboration with Russia, from the start of the Ukraine war. And we've seen him go against Sweden's accession to the NATO. But if we compare him to Kilicdaroglu, we can see that Kilicdaroglu is more leaning towards perhaps the Western Bloc, joining the perimeters of the Western Bloc. What do both candidates serve to the West and the US in brief?
Yeah, indeed, in Turkey, all political actors, they are anti-Western.
Mhm.
You need to accept it. Yeah, anti-Western sentiments, they are very powerful in this country. That's why Kılıçdaroğlu became very critical towards the West for many times. Or we thought that AK Party was more pro-European during these days. Yeah, first of all, yeah, Erdogan has a more powerful profile in the international scene. He has close relations with Putin. He's directly in dialogue with some Arab leaders, and he's very popular in East Asia, especially among the Muslims. And of course, he had some conflicts with Egypt, and Turkey's engaged in the war in Libya, etc., etc. And there are some regional problems, but yeah, he's still very powerful and well known. The issue is that Kılıçdaroğlu is not well known, and his opinions, they are not also well known, and indeed the opposition's opinions, they are not well known. Yeah, opposition prepared a draft constitution, they prepared a long memorandum, but whenever they talked about foreign relations, they are talking about peace, multilateralism, blah, blah, but they don't deal with the real issue. Some members of the opposition camp made some personal, individual declarations saying that Turkey will be totally pro-Western, Turkey will support NATO and the EU's enlargement, etc., etc. But the issue is that they won't be that powerful, even that they will get the election. They will win the election because, as I said, yeah, the parliament doesn't have a power. And foreign policy, like other policies, they are conducted in the palace by the cabinet. And the parliament cannot intervene. On the other hand, partner parties can intervene. They have such a chance. They can intervene to policy formation issue. That's why, yeah, there will be some negotiations about almost every topic. The first thing, yeah, is not voting Sweden or not. Yeah, the Swedish issue is highly related with the terrorist activities of Kurdish separatists in this country. This is how Turkey sees the position problem. Of course, you can. Someone says that okay, it's normal, it's that's democracy, etc. But Turkey has limited tolerance for it, and they are asking some for more serious measures against these people. It's something important, and there is an embargo of sales of Swedish arms to Turkey. Turkey is asking for the removal of this embargo, etc. And Turkey always was very critical towards Turkey's membership, full membership. I'm talking about new governments, if not during the 2000s. Sweden was the most important supporter of Turkey, but it changed. Yeah, the issue is that if Sweden cannot change its position about these terrorist activities, it's not easy to sell this idea to the Turkish public because other parties always will exploit this weakness of Syria. People think that the new government will be totally pro-European. No, it won't be. There are some anti-European members of the table of six, such as Saadet parties. They are very religious and they are totally anti-Western. They are very, very conservative. That's why they will ask for some limitations. And there is no consensus on the full membership to the EU, indeed. You know that some members of the CH wants it, but the rest, their attitudes are not clear. About the Syria issue, for example, yeah, the opposition doesn't have any plan. They say that they will contact with they will contact Assad, and Assad will change his mind, etc., etc. They are not realistic. My impression is that the opposition camp didn't spend some time to develop coherent foreign policy proposals. Yeah, for these multidimensional world. And despite the foreign experts, they are making some visual thinking. They think that, yeah, if it's this opposition, it should be against Erdogan's practices. It means that they should be more pro-Western, more multilateralist, etc., etc. But we are not sure. Yeah, because we have some very severe problems, such as our presence in the northern Syria, our interventions to northern Iraq, our activities in the eastern Mediterranean waters, and Turkey is very active in the war in Libya, and always will be active in any problems in Balkans. Turkey, and the most important issue is that Turkey played a mediating role during the war. Yeah, some people say that they will be totally pro-Ukrainian, which cannot be tolerated by our neighbor. Yeah, it's not acceptable for the Russian perspective. Moreover, Turkey is indirectly engaged in the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is still very powerful, but still needs support of Turkey. A significant number of the chief of staff of the Azerbaijan army, they are actually trained in the Turkish military schools. They are very close to each other. They are working all together. That's why it's not easy to leave the region and directly concentrating on the West.
So lastly, to that, since you brought up the Syrian matter, so now that we see that perhaps President Assad could be potentially going back to the Arab League, how does this affect Erdogan's political ambitions and his perhaps his chances at winning the May 14 elections?
Yeah, the issue is very complex because, yeah, in Turkey there is a huge anti-immigrant sentiment. Almost more than 80% of respondents says that Syrians, they had to go back. And some of them, they advocate compulsory migration. There's that kind of tendencies, and there were some small parties who tried to exploit these negative feelings. But the issue is that Erdogan was very successful to sell this Syrian issue to his supporters by using the rhetoric of Ensar, kardeşlik. He said that, okay, we are brothers, sisters, we need to help, etc. AK Party members, they accepted constituencies. Indeed, the opposition had a harsher position. Always, Kilicdaroglu or Akşener leaders advocated a different position, and advocating expelling Syrian immigrants to their countries. The issue is that their first premise about this issue is that they have to make a kind of dialogue with Assad, and with the cooperation of Assad, sending back all these refugees, which is not something easy, of course. It has been more than 12 years they are living there. Erdogan's approach, it's not clear he is totally against Assad, but perhaps he can try to set up a communication channel between them. For example, in 2014, something like that, there were a clash between Turkey and Russia, and Russia imposed sanctions. Turkey was very weak against Russia because none of its allies, such as NATO or neighbors, could help Turkey if we would face with Russia. Turkey was alone, indeed. but we became successful in reconstructing the dialogue between Turkey and Russia. And now we are talking about the close relationship between these two countries. Meaning that, of course, Erdogan is against Assad. But if it is needed, he will be his best friend.
Okay. So you've provided extensive information regarding, especially the inner works of Turkish politics, and that is one of the things that I aim in. As I mentioned, there's an article that I'm writing about the May 14th Turkish elections, and so I would like to thank you. And
You're welcome
for all this information that you've provided in this meeting. And so now that you've given that perspective, especially from inner Turkey and what that means for what's outside of Turkey, that is very beneficial for both the article and for those interested in Turkish politics in Al Mayadeen English network. Zaman ayırdığınız için çok teşekkür ederim.
Rica ederim.
And
İstediğiniz zaman konuşabiliriz. Merak ettiğiniz